Okay, Sinadopi. I I feel so good this morning to do Native Wellness Institute's Facebook Live. Of course, I'm on my iPhone. I just got back from a hike, but I'd like to just start off with a visiting session. The topic of this power hour is why Gona works. And, I have a routine. So I wanted to start off with, I just finished a Gona a couple of days ago. And I think one of the reasons Gona works is because of the humor. And so I'm in Blackfoot territory. Like this is the lake I live on. And this is the snow outside. And so that's so I was thinking, do you have to do land acknowledgement when you just live on your land and all your ancestors live on your land and you live on your land and you hoping all your descendants live on the land? So I guess I'll do land acknowledgement because that seems to be really a gentle protocol wherever we're at. So I am on Lower St. Mary's Lake, right below Going to the Sun Road. And I live on what is the old wagon trail before there was any Highway 89 or any roads. I live right here on this wagon trail. And so some say it was the north, the North Trail that a lot of our European allies, some were allies, some weren't. They came and they went up this trail before there was any boundaries or states. And so my acknowledgement is I'm right below Nenastico Chief Mountain. And our brother Ira, who's a geologist, he says that it's the oldest piece of rock on this continent. And come and prove us wrong, eh? And I'll just say that our territory, I always heard my iron pipe relatives, my bull shoe relatives, my Russell and my prairie chicken close relatives talk about when we die after living 100 years, that's why we have 100 willow sweat, is we cross over to the sand hills. And I always heard it called Big Sandy. So I'm below Saskatchewan and where the sand hills are. And then just recently I traveled all the way down to Yellowstone to a place called Immigrant, Montana. So in that area is our territory. So I'm doing just a land acknowledgement. I said, sheesh, land acknowledgement could take a long time, but it's precious. I was born and raised in Heartbeat, Montana. I was born in April 1956. And I was born to Yeskriptadaki, yellow flower woman, Betty Newbreast Cooper, who was born in 1938. And I was born to my father, and later on they just called him Monokini. And Dad was born in 1937. And so I'm showing you why Gona is important, because I think that knowing our history, so I'll tell a couple stories, and please put in the chat. I'm not going to read the chat because we got an hour. And I'll tell you a story first of my father, because I think Gona works when we know all the stories of our father. Even if we weren't around him, but I was around my dad. I was most of my life until he passed away in 2002 from lung cancer, because he was part of the tuberculosis epidemic, and he lost a lung in Suisun, South Dakota. And so the story I want to tell, I'm going to start there and telling two stories. And this is why Gona works, because, you know, the more you tell the stories of your parent, and when they go to Big Sandy, just tell the good stories. Like anyone else, just tell the good stories, and it will bring goodness to your heart. So one of the stories, and it's kind of, you know, I have all these favorites, is when my dad was 11 years old. So that would be 1948. There was, they'd call it, in Browning, call it a wicked. It was a wicked winter. You know, like, I just love our people. It's a wicked winter, and I think we're going to have a wicked one in 2021. But this wicked winter in 1948, Dad said it blizzard, and the wind blew and the snow blew for, he said it was quite like 36 days. They just were like socked in, snowed in. and you know, those of you, come visit us in the winter. We'll see if you last. I always, that's the true test, if you last 3 winters. And they take bets around here. They all say, oh, that one only lasts 2 winters, maybe 1. Sorry for laughing, but it's humorous to me. No, I'm not sorry for laughing, because I find joy in the world. I think it's my birthright to thrive and to find joy. So 36 days it blizzarded, and Dad said they finally, you know, they didn't have anything to feed the horses. It just had blizzarded and everything was covered up, and they were running out of food, and you couldn't hunt. It was just, so what happened is there was, you know, a rescue, and these planes flew over Hart Butte on the south side. We got 1.5 million acres here, and the planes flew over, and they dropped big, oh I'm orange, I'm painting my nails orange for residential school on Mark Graves and healing. So they dropped all these, they even oats and hay for the horses, and they dropped food, and they dropped, it was his birthday in February, and he was 11 years old, so the drop came, and when they dropped, they had these beautiful sheepskin, you know, interlined coats for children and for adults. So when they dropped the rescue supplies, there was a coat that was perfect for my dad, and it fit him. And Atstanikiwa, that's his mom, my grandma, she was the midwife on the south side. She delivered all the babies up until Snake comes at night. And so Grandma Atstanikiwa, and then my sister Lori carries her name because Grandma gave her her name when she was born, is she told my dad, she said, "Estebatapio gifted you." And so my dad always said he knew Estebatapio was powerful, and he never had any doubt. Whenever he needed a prayer, he would just pray, and because Estebatapio had gifted him that sheepskin coat when he was 11 years old, because Grandma said it fell out of the sky. And, you know, so he's, you know, your 11-year-old boy, and all these goodies fall out of the sky. That's divine. So Dad wore that coat until it wore out, and you know, they never threw anything away, so even when it was falling apart, they took it and they used it for other things. And that's how Al Potts used to always say, he'd always say, ah, Picanni. He said, you know, they used to call it, scabby robe or torn robe. But he said it didn't mean that. It meant that we used everything. We didn't throw things away. We renovated them. And that was part of our character, is Scapi Picanni, or Siksikaetapi, the Blackfoot Confederacy, is we used everything. So Dad always told that story, and he was born in 1937. So I'm telling you some Gona stories. So let's see. I'm going to tell you with these orange shirts, you know, and I'm going to hold this close. I decided it would, so I'd never forget, because, you know, like social media, people, a few months and they forget. So you see this black heart. I put this black heart on my ring finger because I wanted to say healing for the priests and the nuns that harmed in the unmarked graves. Apologize for that glitz. That's what happens in Montana. And so I'm gonna pray for. It's like a forgiveness prayer. Where, you know, from Kamloops to all over the lower 48, we're healing from boarding and residential schools. There's even some people have grants and are creating all kinds of stuff, and use Gona. Gona is best practices, and Gona, shoot, it started in 1990 just as writing down of a curriculum. So many people helped. And I was just one of hundreds in the focus groups, and that's how it was developed. So part of why Gona works is to know our history and our correct history. So I'll tell you my mother, because we have to know our parents' stories and our grandparents. And, you know, if you can go back a few generations, it really helps, because if you see what hurt them and you understand epigenetics, you can start your epigenetic prayers and begin the healing. So the story of my mom, and she didn't always tell. She's 80. She just turned 83. Very loving, very joyful. She's into basketball right now, and she, you know, she's into cooking, and she. My mom just thrives. But the story I want to share with you is, you know, my mom has pictures of when she was in Cut Bank boarding school. And it's only 7 miles from Browning, Montana. And my mom was, didn't want to go there, but at that time, and you know, that was the choice of some of our parents. They weren't bad. It was about starvation. It was about having warmth, so many things. So the story I want to share is, once my mom got there, because she has this one picture, and there's like all these, you know, all these kids, and she knows each of their names, and she knows each of their stories, but I want to stay focused on her story. And so, but my mama's carried a stick, you know, she had a stick, and she was only, you know, about 8 years old. And I said, well, Mom, how come you got that stick? And she goes, well, when you went to boarding school, it was so frustrating and hurtful for a lot of the kids. You, when you first get there, you get beat up. And then, you know, the younger ones, they'll get just beat up. It's kind of like lateral oppression, you know, how our people beat each other up now. It's just a sign of trauma. So she said, but if you carry a big stick, you have a fighting chance, and sometimes people won't beat you up. Even the matrons, sometimes, you know. So here's my mom, 8 years old, and she had learned to carry a stick to protect herself. And so the story I wanted to share, and this is why Gona works, is, you know, I'm just doing it. It's not I'm not going to kill you with the PowerPoint. I can't do death by PowerPoint for some reason. By that third slide, I just say, stop colonizing me. I'm not going to do this PowerPoint. Anyway, when she was about 9, and she told this to me a couple winters ago. It was a blizzard and I was at her house. And she was writing letters because my mother's social media is writing letters and receiving letters. In case you want to write her a letter. She will write you back, I swear. Anyway, Mom, she was about 9 years old and she had tried to run away a couple times. And, you know, my Aunt Carol, Arrow Top Knot, when she came in, Mom said she cried all night, so they let her go sleep with her. And Mom had ripped up the sheets and made a rag doll and told her that rag doll was going to protect her and that she was going to be okay. And so my Aunt Carol slept with that rag doll. But Mom said she had ran away twice already, and they caught her, you know, because they'd catch you and bring you back, and so it was just a detour. So one of the things that they did is, she said, at night they took away their shoes. They would take all of their shoes, go around the boarding school and take their shoes. So especially, you know, wintertime, you weren't inclined to run away because you'd freeze to death much faster because you'd be running in the snow. So this is the story of my mom, and we're talking about Gona. And hey, this is the 84 weeks of Native Wellness Institute Power Hour, and so I'm just visiting with you. So Mom said the third time she decided to run away she had to plan it. She learned. So what she did was, she said when they'd work outside, you know, because often they use the children. It was like a concentration camp. You know, they had to make the bread, they had to make the food, they had to, you know, do all of the ranch work around there, kind of. You know, it was, so Mom said they used to give them these rubbers, and they were like, you know, galoshes or rubbers. So they had stolen or taken. It's kind of funny because, you know, I have some of my Blackfeet relatives say that Blackfeets never steal, they just take it. Anyway, she had taken 11 pair of these galoshes and rubbers and hid them right outside in the woods. And she had organizing meetings with the kids. And so she really wanted to take those with a brave heart that really wanted to try to run away and get back to their parents, or to just run away from where they were in this concentration camp. And so 11 of them, there was 11 pair of galoshes, they stepped forward, and some were little. And so Mom thought she knew, I guess she knew how to read the land, you know, she knew which way to go. And she said, our best bet is to run away in a blizzard. So here's typical Blackfeet, you know, they're not going to run away on a sunny July. They're going to run away on a goddamn blizzard. So then I'm laughing because it's healing. You know, sometimes the tears and the laughter are healing. At least they are for me. You? So she ran away with these 11 kids, and they had the galoshes on, and they made it to town, all 11 of them, in the blizzard. And she said the first house that helped them, and I think it's Harry Barnes's mother. Anyway, they reclothed them, you know, got them warm, fed them, and the clothes they had given them were all white. So they ended up, everyone was searching for them, and they caught them one by one. And it was down to her and 2 girls, and they were out kind of on the main street. And this is how my mother got saved. Is one of our, they hired our own people just like, you know, rabbit-proof fences to go out and to find these children that ran away from boarding school. And so the person that they had hired to go find them also came upon the three of them when they were caught. And there was a dialogue with between the two men, and the one man said, go ahead and take these two, but let me take Betty, because her mother, Awatsky, Irene Bolshu, Polak, Cooper, had just moved to town. He said, let me take Betty, and I'll bring her to her mom's. And of course the worker, you know, they didn't have personnel policies, but they didn't break the rules either, because they had been colonized pretty good. So they went back and forth, and finally he won, and he was able to take my mother, and she wasn't too far. She was just over, it just wasn't, you know, like maybe 400 yards away. And he took my mom to Awatsky, and my mother never had to go back to boarding school. So Gona is about telling historical stories. And so just with those two stories, you know, Dad with tuberculosis and believing. So I guess my dad and my mom instilled in me to say your prayers every day. And I guess like Joe Boss, Joseph Ironpipe, and, you know, all of them, they had, Grandma and Grandpa had a Blue Thunder teepee. And I guess I used to sleep underneath the bundle with that have the drum and stuff that went with it. So I always felt like I was protected. Even today, like, you know, I said my prayers, and I'm just coming on the Power Hour. It's our 84th week, you know, for Native Wellness Institute. You know, we in March of 2020, we wanted to come on and to tell inspiring stories for Indigenous and healing. So today I'm just sharing with you why Gona, which stands for the Gathering of Native Americans. When we did the Gona with Dr. Deb Pace up at Siksika, we called it the Gathering of Siksika Nation. And then when we did it in Australia, we just called it the Gathering of all the Aboriginals in Australia territory. And when we did it in New Zealand, we just called it the Gathering of Maori. You get it. So on. It's just gathering. And it's basically the teachings of our ancestor, how we belong, what's our identity. So Gona helps people figure out who they are and their true identity, not other identities that they may have adopted. They're authentic. It's like self-actualization. The mastery part of it is to examine historical stuff. Go back 100 years, 50 years, even, you know, just go back and look at the places that you have to heal within your family and with your tribe. And you reclaim. So in reclaiming, you start to learn to pray in your language. You know, Hayo Stipatapi, Hayo Nina, Hayo Napinatusi, Hayo Kita Piwa, No Gaiki Moket, No Gas Pomoket. Have pity on me, help me. Stipatapi, Spomokana, Ixkanax, horns. Spomokana Namska. Spomokana Moto Keeks. Spomokana Ganax Timata. Spomokana Siksikai, Gainai, Abatsapikani, and Amskapi Pikani. Spomokana, the 584 tribes, the lower 48. Spomokana, all the First Nations, the Métis, all across Canada. So I just try to pray best I can. So I'm a practicing speaker. Did you know it's lateral oppression when you make fun of how someone says something? Just let them say it. Just keep talking with them. I was just thinking, this morning, I make treaty with the animals around here. And so Gona is a process by which it develops relationships and helps us to make treaty with animals, with the land, and you feel better. So I wanted to, in the hours that we're here, share. I was just at a Gona, and I don't want to break anyone's anonymity, so I will talk in situations and maybe not necessarily people, but you could guess who they are. So I was with an elder at the Native American Connections in Phoenix, Arizona. And Dee Dee Yazzie has been the executive director, since the 70s. And we got to know her because my mother ran a treatment program called White Cloud Lodge and New Dawn Lodge that eventually became the Friendship House in San Francisco. And Dr. Sidney Stone Brown was part of a team that helped with NARA. And they all, this elder I was with last week, she's been around since then, like the 1970s. And I swear she healed through humor. And she comes from the great Hopi Nation. She's part of the 13 grandmas. They were 13 grandmas, indigenous grandmas, who had the same dream. And then they all got together and they would go around the world and pray. Most of them were tribal, some from Alaska, some from Lakota, Nakota, Dakota, Southern Cheyenne woman, Margaret Behan. But our elder, when we were prepping, because Gonas, and I'll just, the key to Gonas is to prep 3 to 6 months in advance. You plan it 3 to 6 months in advance. Yeah, right on, Friendship House. That is such a beautiful treatment program. And Native American Connections has 24 houses of treatment. They just opened a brand new Native men's treatment. And I was asking them, like, what's the drug of today? And they said fentanyl, heroin, opioids, methamphetamine. And then people are just mixing stuff. And I said, I guess, I have to be transparent. I celebrated 33 years, and I say Alcoholics Anonymous because I still go to Zoom meetings, I still go to meetings, and then over 50 years in Alateen and Al-Anon. My healing started when I was 12 years old, and I stumbled on an Alateen meeting, and I didn't understand that it was a disease, and so that's where I discovered it. And so I always, I think lately, I've been really holding on to the Al-Anon because it's about relationships, and it really helps. So this elder, they were asking, what's her responsibilities and what's her role? And the whole team, because we've been prepping for, some time, a few months. And so I said, her role is me and her will be joined at the hip. So we will facilitate together. And so the elder was just so ingenious because she heals with humor. So I think one of the first or second time, she does a lot of introduction, but she does it with humor. So I want to share some of that humor because Gona works because of the humor. And so, and I guess because I just enjoy how she did it. So her husband is a language speaker, and he doesn't speak really good English still, or he doesn't care to. And so she said she was in the bedroom meditating, and she does her own meditations, mindfulness, prayer. you know, there's many words for it, but she was in there doing her meditating, and her husband came, knock, knock, you know, just kind of opened the door, and he looked in, you know, and he looked at her and he goes, "Oh, are you ministrating?" Because he had mixed up the English words, meditating, and, "Oh, I didn't mean to bother you. I didn't know you were ministrating." so, so anyhow, and so she went on with her meditation. But she said often her and her husband, they just laugh, and she'll just say, "Okay, honey, I'm gonna go ministrate," which she's actually just doing her prayers and doing some meditation. The other piece of humor, and I was just thinking as she went on, second day she came out and she brings out this big old bag of Q-tips, you know, Q-tips that you clean your ears with. And she had some of the helpers, and we had 45 clinicians, alcohol counselors, and GONA trainers. You know, shout out to Dwight, Janelle, shout out to all of Percy, Hetty, oh God, Hetty Emery, yes. They've been doing GONAs for years, and so they were the helpers. So they all ran around and gave everyone 2 Q-tips. And she, you know, and this is over like, you know, a 20-minute talk. And she said, well, this Q-tip, one is for you, and then one is to give away. And she said, keep it with you to remind you, and to remind you to quit taking it personally. So I'll say part of GONA's fidelity of GONA is quit taking it personally. You know, so she gave out these Q-tips, and she said, so one is to remind you that in every situation, don't react. Pray about it, think about it, and don't take things personally, because sometimes, especially if something's harsh, if something's hurtful, like I guess someone hacked me on Facebook. So I thought, well, I'll deal with that later. I'm going to say some prayers. I'm not going to react. Anyway, she said, say the prayers and then don't take it personal, because usually if it's out of anger or it's hurtful or it feels like it hurts you, it usually has more to say about that person. It has nothing to do with you, so don't take it personal. And so that was her humor. So everyone was, you know, delicately taking their 2 Q-tips, and then right away thinking, who am I going to give my Q-tips away to? So this elder, as we're going along, she would always she'd ask you a question, but she wouldn't give you the answer till, you know, hours later. And so one of the questions she asked us was, okay, this is a quiz. She said, what is the cheapest meat that you can get? The cheapest meat, you know, and then people were guessing, you know, because, boy, meat has gone up during the pandemic, eh? That's why we're all hunting. Here on the Blackfeet Reservation, when you're 65, you get a free elk tag. And so I just turned 65. I'll be 66, and so I got a free elk tag. And so my nephew, Doug, is going to hunt it, and then I give him half the meat. But that was the question. So everyone was saying, well, is it hamburger? Is it Spam? You know, they're all trying to come up with the answer. Anyway, at the end of the day, she said, okay, the cheapest meat is buck balls, scrotum, because it's underneath the buck. But the whole day we're like laughing, we're like watching. And so I wanted to start with that to talk about, you know, the humor of why GONA works. Again, gathering of Native Americans, and I wanted to, you know, I was visiting with my mother earlier, and I still, gosh, sometimes twice a day visit with my mother, and she always says, she asked people, have you been Gonaized? Have you gone to a Gona? Or do you need to go to a Gona? How many Gonas have you went to? And so I was visiting with her, and I said, Mom, isn't it kind of funny, like how over the years, and I'll just, and there's nothing against government people, but if all your government efforts work so well, how come we're not all healed? Duh. Because there's always someone from the outside that don't know the culture, make you do a needs assessment, make you do a survey, make you do all of these strength-based blah, blah, blah. And it's more about that. And so people are so busy filling out the paperwork, they can never do the work. So why does Gona work? And I think Gona works because nobody owns it. It's owned by the people. And I think Gona works because it's about bringing back the creation stories. And, I was just at another Gona in Wairika, California, and it was so helpful for that group. They started with their creation stories and around Hupa and Happy Camp and all of that area, Wairika. And they said Grand Round comes from their area. And I was like, wow, they're up there in Oregon. But it's so good when you have your creation story and see how your people have gone out. And so I just say, know the history, and know the history of resiliency. One of the areas that really helped us heal is we started looking at what relatives went away to residential school and boarding school. And I have to, I have relatives on the Alberta side at Kainai, at Abatsapikani, and then at Siksikai. So I come from both places. So I'm going to talk about here. And one of the healings that happened for us is, and it's really cool because everyone else is doing it right now, is they went to Carlisle Institute and they were looking at all the children that are in that buried in that cemetery. And if you go to Carlisle, it's at a military base, so you have military men, with rifles, and it's kind of, and we went there, meaning because my mother had a dream in 2008 that she wanted to go to Carlisle and she wanted to smoke her personal pipe that she had sundanced with. And so we brought her over there, her, my daughter, and our little chihuahua, and we went in there and we said prayers, and we seen two graves. One was of George L. and a Shorty. His last name was Shorty. So I wanted to, it's another story, and that's, why Gona works is part of, I was just looking for his remembrance paper. And so I'm just going to hold it up for you. This is George L. And he was 17 years old when he died. And he comes from the L family, and that's spelled E-L-L. And so from 2008, some of his relatives, Leon Chief Elk, and a lot of the L's that live here on the reservation, they had went through the Graves and Repatriation Act, and they went and they were able to dig up his grave and to bring his bones back home. And that's why this remembrance paper is so important, because this happened in 2017. And that's why Gona works is, here's a, you can see George L. There's another picture of him. And, the United States Indian Industrial School in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, generally known as Carlisle Industrial School, was the flagship Indian boarding school between 1879 and 1918. But I wanted to tell you why it was healing. And I was just a cheerleader and a supporter to the L family and to Leon Chief Elk, because they drove. You know, he was around Nevada. He came and got the relatives, and they drove here from Browning, Montana, and they drove all the way to Carlisle, and they were able to retract his bones. And so he was there 129 years. And when they brought him back here, right over here on the lake that I showed you at the beginning of here, there's a top area called Livermore. And up on the Livermore area is where the L family has the original allotment. And so a lot of our children were sent to Carlisle. A lot of the grounds, I mean, just many were sent here. A lot of the Bird family. So George L., they were able to get his bones. And I just remember one of the relatives in the healing, and she had really long hair, like down, you know, way past, down the back of her side, almost to her knees, is she cut her hair and she put it in with the bones of George L. And that was the mourning. And that's, you know, the only way we, the suggested way is we cut our hair in mourning. All the pandemic funerals we've been at are the people that we've lost. You'll see the ceremony of the cutting of the hair. So she put it in there, and they drove the bones back to the reservation here. So it was July 2017. And when they brought him back, you know, I wanted, they had like a regular funeral. They had like a wake where they told stories, and then all the trucks, and because it's kind of a hard place to get up to, it's like not for cars. And we went up, and I just remember when we were putting him in the ground, and you know, Merle Yellow Kidney was there. There was Donald Fish helped Merle sing. There was several of our ceremonial people helped with this, help put his body to rest. But since it had been 129 years that he was buried over here at Carlisle, you could feel, and I guess, you know, I'll wind down the stories, because when we brought him, when he was being put in the ground, there was just this giant wind that came, just a giant wind that just, and you know, here, you know, we, you could get, you know, 70-mile-an-hour winds, easy. There was this wind that came, and all the descendants were there, and we were crying. Then there was the songs, and then they sang him home. They sang him home, just like we sang Arlen Edwards sang Earl Oldperson home a few days ago. And when he sang him home, there was this peace and calm that came across Livermore. Like the wind died down, there was just this gentle peace and this calm that he was put to rest. And so, you know, like that storytelling, Gona works because of storytelling. And I'll just say, you know, a clue is to tell stories that you experienced. Not, well, you can begin if you don't know your creation story, or you don't know some of your stories, you can Google some of that. But Gona works without Google. That's it's a way to begin, but just tell the stories that you have experienced. And so I'm gonna, in our last, I would say the 15 minutes of the Power Hour, week 84. One of the things of why Gona works is because a lot of the focus of Gona is on wisdom of our ancestors, the strength of our ancestors. And so they used to last 4 days. So a lot of people do 3 days, 2 days. But even if you do 1 day, Native American connections likes to do a couple days with their staff, and then they take it and integrate it at all 24 houses. So everybody, so when you do it, concentrate, the interdependence is around the strengths, and it's different than being dependent or independent. It's about being interdependent, interwoven, where it's give and take. And then the generosity. So I'm focused on the generosity. And in the generosity, part of the healing and the reason Gona works is, there's skits where you take problems like at Native American Connections. They took LGBTQ and transgender and Two-Spirit, and they did skits on why that was important to heal. That actually LGBTQ and transgender and Two-Spirit in most tribes and most indigenous were holy people. They were held in high esteem. They were vibrant. They were joyful. They were creative. They were upheld. And it wasn't until outsiders came in colonization that it got repressed and quote unquote was a bad thing or a sin. So it's really interesting because that day that we were doing interdependence and we did the skits, we did so much healing. Like one of the healing events was a man who had a family and a wife finally decided to come out with his true story of being gay, and how painful it was, and there's terms, men on the down low. I prefer it's men or women who become their authentic self. So he came out, and his story during interdependence help everyone else tell their story of healing of their own experience or the experience in their family. And God, it was just so beautiful. It was so great. I mean, just to see that if you allow children to become, a lot we say we're raising them non-binary, and you allow them to choose and show who they are, not try to control and to make them be a certain gender that you think they should be with certain roles. So, one of the things that, I'm sitting in this is my Zoom space, it's property that our tribe got back in 1994. We have 300 lots around this lake, and you have to be an enrolled member to live here. And I've lived here for 27 years. And on this side, I'm the only one all year round because when it gets winter, everybody skedaddles to shoot. There's even some white acting Indians, snowbirds, they go to Arizona or Tucson or something. But I just love, it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. But I love winter. And so so while I'm sitting here in my Zoom space, I always create Gona affirmations, because part of Gona, it works. Part of the fidelity is everyone takes a picture, and then everyone in the healing event, they go around and put positive things that they think about that person. So with Gona affirmations, and so I think it was around, I always do stuff at the equinox and the solstice, because I just think it's the most powerful time. So you could start getting ready for, December 21st, which is going to be a great thing this year, because when I was in Peru, I learned that the Mayan calendar goes for 26,000 years, and 2012 was when the new cycle of 26,000 years happens. And I learned while I was in Peru from the holy people there that the equinox and the solstice is volatile when we begin. And it's interesting, even when I was at Machu Picchu, one of our guides there said, yes, the equinox and the solstice, you'll have things, and he said this in 2012, like a prophecy. He said you'll have things like earthquakes, pandemics, floods. You'll have this climate change, you know. And so at the equinox and at the solstice, I always put new Gona affirmations. And so I wanted to concentrate on our remaining time. So September 22nd, which was, that's like a big ceremonial time. And it's really cool around here because, you know, we have a lot of, our bundles are closing. It's the last of, you know, and just being around the beavers. I was watching the beavers here, man. They were just taking down trees, big trees. So, you know, if they're building a house, I would say we're going to have a rough winter. But the affirmations that I wrote, and I put them, and I guess, you know, I'm just going to show them to you for a minute, and then I'm going to talk about them. These are my Gona affirmations. And so the first one is, it is my birthright to thrive and live in joy. And so since that is the wisdom, every day, you know, when I have like my rituals of getting ready, and I really, you know, I've learned at the beginning of this pandemic, we were crazy. Don't do Zoom for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours. That's crazy making. So I try to just limit Zoom to like 3.5 hours. And then I do other things. And it's even my one-on-one sessions. I do a lot of one-on-one sessions with Seattle Indian Health Board and Native American Health Center. So it is my birthright to thrive and to live in joy. So I try to actualize it each day. And so think about, you know, even in the comments, how do you each day in your birthright to thrive and to have joy? And so, especially for you workaholics, a recovering workaholic. So I try to look at the joyful things. Like one of the most blessed things this week was watching everyone celebrate Halloween. And that was just so beautiful. People dressed up, people, you know, children, it was just so beautiful. So that affirmation that it's your birthright to thrive and live in joy. And what brings you joy? You know, simple things. You know, I did bake a turkey a couple days ago, and I'm still eating off of it. I try one of the joyful things, because I try not to just do European holidays. So I thought I'd just start making turkeys, and I got some really good cranberry, and I'm just going to, all this week, be, I guess, what people do one day a year on Thanksgiving. I'm just going to do, like, every day. Every day be indigenous. Every day, you know, it's American Indian Heritage Month. Make all, not just 1 month, make all 12 months American Indian Heritage. Because what Gona is making all 12 months American Indian Heritage Month. So that's an affirmation. So I wanted to share these other 5, you know, the other Gona empowering affirmation that I'm operating under since September 22nd is, I exist because my ancestors resisted, and I will resist. Whew, I tell you, I think about that, you know, because here I am on my iPhone because it's just the most comfortable. I was going to walk outside, but I decided it would be more quiet. I resist some of the technology, and I was really trying to embrace it. Like, I asked help from my friends. I got hacked, and so I need help with that. I thought, why would anybody want to hack me? What did I do to them? I had to boo. Anyway, I'm resisting colonizing. I think that's why I still chop my wood. That's why I still eat wild meat. That's why I still think that prayers are the most important rites of passage are the most important. But I also I wanted to speak up and to be an advocate. And that's, today, thank you, Jolene Joseph, our executive director. I just love Jolene. She goes, feel like a power hour? And I was sitting there, just thought I was going to have this easy day. And I thought, yeah, I could visit for an hour. Let me do a power hour. So every ounce where you promote your culture, every ounce where you take your cultural identity, every appreciation and love of your children and your grandchildren, every story that your parents told you, even if they're not alive, or their legacy, you're resisting. And even when you're sleeping, sleep hygiene, you're resisting. So that's another affirmation I just want to throw out there. This is the 84th week of Native Wellness Institute's Power Hour, and so I'm just winding down with some positive GONA affirmations. So my third affirmation is, my ancestors are always with me. I never walk alone. I'm going to say that again. My ancestors are always with me. I will never walk alone. And so think about that as you go, and you go about your day on this Wednesday, November 3rd, is that your ancestors, and even I talked to my ancestors, like, I was talking to my uncles, and I said, Uncle, I got all my wood. Uncle, I'm ready for winter. I got the propane, I'm ready. I got the truck is finally back. Oh yeah, that's my good news. I had lifetime warranty on my 2016 Dodge Ram. So they just put a brand new 5.7 Hemi engine in, and then I just got brand new, really aggressive tires because I'm not walking alone. And I always gratitude, say thank you to the ancestors. So this morning when I was saying, thank you for my pony. I call my horse my pony. Thank you for my house. Thank you for my dog, Okan. He's doing okay. Can't jump up on things, but he still goes. Thank you for my mother. Thank you for my sisters. Thank you for my NWI team. And I was really, shout out to Josh out there. As soon as I turned on my phone, Josh Cocker, Theta, I got this message. And then Alan Morgan, Theta, change your password. I was just trying to wake up, and they're like, they love you, and so it is, yes, Joni, it is encouragement. So the fourth affirmation, and I'll just, because I read it over and over, this affirmation says, I am the collective spirit of all those who came before me. I'm going to read it again. I am the collective spirit of all those who came before me. So when you got 30,000 ancestors before you, today, have no doubt. Don't have no doubt. No matter, you are enough. You are just where you're supposed to be, and everything's going to be okay. The last affirmation, as we're kind of winding down on this power hour, is, my ancestors are my warriors. No enemy can defeat me. So let me say that again. My ancestors are my warriors. No enemy can defeat me. So with those encouraging words, those 5 affirmations, that's why the Gathering of Native Americans works, is the things that I've covered in this hour. I just want to thank you. And Native Wellness Institute, all of these are free. 84 weeks of Power Hour on YouTube. Just go to Native Wellness Institute, and you can review them. They're also on our Facebook page, and also, I guess my last words, because I got a lot of messages yesterday about people being triggered. And if you've been triggered, or if your tribe's been triggered, call us at Native Wellness Institute, or go on our site, www.nativewellness.com, and make a request, because we're doing Zoom, we're doing hybrid, we're doing some in person, and we can plan and develop a Gona for you. And it will be an indigenous Gona. So I just like to add that little bit of, I guess, PR for Native Wellness Institute. I just want to thank you, for visiting with me and letting me share some stories, letting us be together. And so I'm going to sign off and I guess just go be an Indian. I'm Scoffy Cutting. So I'm going to eat some of my turkey with cranberry, because I think Thanksgiving is every day. So I'm just going to say Kitakito Matsuno and Kitsikako Mim. I love all of you.